Hello everybody, Random Observer here with another video, and today I'd like to talk about the topic of entitlement, which is a problem in our society. First of all, I'd like to tell a short story. One of my close relatives had an ex-husband who sadly was very ill, and it was a form of cancer and it wasn't nice at all. He had quite a few operations. In fact, not one, not even a couple of operations. He had in total, I believe, 7 operations, and it was pretty awful. He suffered very, very badly, but I tell you what, he never complained. That was the amazing thing. Not once did he complain. And the last time I saw him alive, he was literally holding his own body together. It was that bad, but he never complained. And I've got to say, I had a whole new load of respect for him for that. And the same goes with, again, I was at a party, and one of the people I was talking to, as he explained to me, he was actually a Ukrainian refugee. He had been on holiday in Barcelona, I believe. Then, of course, he came back to find that his hometown had been completely overrun by the Russians, so he had no home. The first thing he said to me was, "Well, I have 2 arms and 2 legs and I can work." And that's what he said. And likewise, another third story, I just want to say there was, I think it was a great aunt of mine. Again, had an operation. The operation went wrong. They had, very unpleasantly, they had to do an amputation. And I thought I would have been furious if that had happened to me. But no, she was still smiling. After something as awful as that, she was still smiling. And so on and so on. So many tales of courage and sacrifice from many, many individuals the world over, but they serve to teach us a valuable lesson. You really do need to be grateful for what you have. All of these people had every right to complain, and they never did. And the rest of us really should take a lesson from that. Because when I hear, I'm okay, we've all done it. We've gone through the whole, oh, woe is me. I've had such a hard life. The world owes me. The world, I've had some bad times. Woe is me. Therefore, the world owes me. And it's an attitude. You're in this bubble, and everyone's affirming, "Oh yeah, yeah, totally. You're great. You're a wonderful pal. The world should appreciate you more." And it just reinforces this worldview that you are the most hard done by person on the planet, and everyone else is having a wonderful, easy time of things, and therefore you are owed so much. And in fact, you can see this attitude. For example, there are graduates, I am told, who, for example, expected to be paid double the national average wage. They wanted double what most of us would earn as a starter salary. I think their expectations are a little too high there, anyway, but, and likewise, I had a fairly youngish recruit come into a company I was working at, and he said, "Oh yes, well, I'm just going to use this team as a bit of a springboard, really, onwards and upwards, And yes, thanks, pal. Very respectful to the rest of us. Poor folks, what do we know, having worked, here about 10 years longer than you." Anyhow, it's that kind of attitude. And yes, to be fair, we've all done it. I myself was the same. I thought, oh, woe is me, blah, 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 blah. And actually getting a place of my own, I got to say, that is the biggest wake-up call I've ever had. Big thank you to the folks who helped me along the way with that, because that really puts things in perspective. When you actually go out into the world and see how hard money is to earn, and have to organize your own life, and have to do things for yourself, then you really, really get to understand just why people are struggling, and the challenges they've got to overcome, and so on and so forth. And it really puts things in perspective, and you become a whole lot grateful for what you got. I've got to say, my respect for working families, working parents, whatever, that's way up there now. It wasn't before, when I was young and naive. I had no idea what they went through, but now, I totally respect them more for it. And it's something that we've got to be wary of. We've got to get rid of this entitlement mentality of, oh, the world owes me stuff. There's this great speech in Rocky. I think it was Rocky 3, that was it. Now, everyone remembers the one in Rocky 2006, Rocky Balboa, the one he makes to his son. But there's also a good one that Rocky makes to Paulie. And again, this is Sylvester Stallone's very skillful writing about the message of individualism and responsibility and so on. But it's the same message, but it's well done, because basically, as everyone will know from watching Rocky 3, Paulie is feeling sorry for himself, and self-pity, jealous, etc. And Rocky basically gives him a schooling, and during his speech, he basically says, nobody owes nobody nothing. You owe yourself, unquote. And that is the attitude. You've got to get out of this victim mentality. The thing is, we see this all the time now. It's this perception of, oh, well, I'm everyone who looks like me, everyone in my part of society, we're all completely victims and oppressed, and therefore society owes us everything. Now, you see this with group politics and identity politics all over again and again and again. I won't mention the name, but there was a recent documentary on TV of this part of society. They have it so hard. Now, the thing is, this entitlement, when you say we have it so hard, you are ignoring other people's suffering. That's the problem with it. For example, I will wager, if you look at every single family this winter, they're having a pretty tough time of things, regardless of who they are. This is the thing. An argument that has been made, for example, I hear from the left, uh, against cultural appropriation, for example, is that we do not understand the pain of other cultures, and what they went through to have their traditions and artifacts, so we can't just put them on like a fad. Fair enough. Understanding someone else's pain is important, but the same logic goes with entitlement. You can't just say you are disrespecting someone else's pain. You've got to realize that the world is not just about you. It is not all just about you. Are not the only person who has suffered. There are other people suffering as well. Go and look at the homeless people on the streets if you don't believe me. I can assure you, they are everywhere now. And their suffering is real. If you think you've had a hard day, well, go talk to them. And the same again. Another ridiculous example. When Lizzo and Meghan Markle and all these celebrities keep going on about being oppressed, about being victims, when they themselves are major celebrities, with millions of dollars, huge status and self-esteem. To be blunt, they're not in a war zone like the Ukrainians are. They are actually properly suffering. They're not out on the streets. They're not having to fight to pay their bills. There are examples of real suffering. So this sense of entitlement is not a good thing. It's permeating every part of society. We have got to get out of this victim mentality. That's why the people I admire, okay, they're fellow conservatives, but Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, all the great speakers, the commentators, they have got out of this victim mentality. They could very easily have said, well, my ancestors suffered terrible treatment, which they did, and therefore I'm going to blame society for this. But they did not do that. They specifically refused to be victims, and to be patronized or pampered or whatever. They said, no, I am an individual. This is what I think. And it's a hard thing to do, but you've got to snap out of this victim mentality. We can all do it. For example, I could do it. My ancestors, going way back when, they were working people, working class as it used to be known. Basically, they got treated like dirt for it. And again, on one side of the family, I am fully white, shall we say, but I am part Irish ethnically and part Anglo-Saxon, which is not an issue nowadays. People barely even notice. Back in the 20th century, there were signs saying no Irish to pubs, so of course I wouldn't have been welcome. And way going back centuries and centuries, I would have been seen as, I would have been too Celtic for the Anglo-Saxons, and too Anglo-Saxon for the Celts. Obviously, well, millennial, I should say. Anyway, the point is we could all go into this victim mentality and say, well, you know, my family were treated awfully. My ancestors were treated awfully. You know, my section of society is stepped on. And all of which may be true. But you've got to think, well, we could spend our entire lives reliving the trauma and the suffering, what our ancestors suffered or what our relatives suffered. Or we can make the most of the freedom that they gave us with all their sacrifices. And that's what I think we need to do. We need to think of ourselves as individuals. There's a really good speech in one of the musicals. You've heard of the song You Never Walk Alone. The musical act comes from Carousel. In the last scene of that musical, there is a monologue which basically says, do not rely on the achievements of your family, your parents. Their achievements are their achievements. Their failures are their failures. You can achieve your own achievements, and your failures are your failures. That's how you got to think. So there really is no time like the present. Let's be individual. Let's make the most of our present, go towards a better future. That's the way to do things. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you like this video, please subscribe, click the link below. Political is personal. Thanks everyone. Bye for now.